Lily Baker stepped off the stagecoach with a suitcase packed for a life she'd only read about in letters, ready to marry the man who had promised her a new beginning. But the first man she met wasn't her fiancé. He was a rugged cowboy with startling blue eyes and grim news. Her husband-to-be was 3 weeks in the grave. Before she could even process her grief, a new threat emerged: the dead man's ruthless brother, who believed she was now his property. Stranded and terrified, her only hope was the stranger who had delivered the bad news, a man who looked her in the eye and made a promise of his own. "You're not leaving with anyone else." She had taken no more than 3 steps when a commotion erupted from the saloon. The bat-wing doors burst open, and a man stumbled out, followed by the sound of breaking glass and angry shouts. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair that curled at the nape of his neck beneath a well-worn setson. His face was partially obscured by several days' worth of stubble, but Lily could see that he was handsome in a rugged, untamed way that made her pulse quicken unexpectedly. The man straightened his vest and turned, catching sight of Lily standing frozen in the street. His eyes, a startling shade of blue, widened in surprise, then narrowed as they took in her suitcase and trunk. "You must be the mail-order bride," he said, his voice deep and rough like whiskey over gravel. "Richard Blackwood's woman?" Lily lifted her chin. "I am to meet Mr. Blackwood." "Yes, I'm Lily Baker." The stranger's mouth twisted into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Well, Miss Baker, I reckon you should know that Richard Blackwood was buried 3 weeks ago." The blood drained from Lily's face. That's not possible. I received a letter from him just before I departed." "Letters take time," the man said, moving closer. "Blackwood got himself shot in a dispute over some land. Seems he wasn't the upstanding citizen he made himself out to be." Lily's legs threatened to give way beneath her. Dead. The man she'd traveled across the country to marry was dead. What was she to do now? She had no money to return east, having spent nearly everything she had on the journey west. I don't understand," she stammered, her mind racing. "Who are you? How do you know this?" "Name's Jake Sullivan," he said, removing his hat to reveal a shock of dark hair. "I own the ranch neighboring Blackwood's property. We weren't what you'd call friends, but I was there when it happened." Lily clutched her suitcase tighter as if it might anchor her to the ground. "Then I suppose I should speak with the sheriff. Perhaps he can advise me on how to proceed." Jake's expression darkened. "Sheriff's out of town tracking a gang of rustlers, won't be back for days." He glanced over his shoulder at the saloon, then back at Lily. "Look, there's a stage heading back east tomorrow morning. I suggest you be on it." "I cannot," Lily admitted, humiliation burning her cheeks. "I've spent nearly all my funds getting here." Jake studied her for a long moment, and Lily fought the urge to squirm under his intense gaze. Finally, he said, "Blackwood's brother is arriving from Denver tomorrow. He sent word that he's coming to claim the store and property. I reckon he'll honor his brother's arrangement with you." Hope flared briefly in Lily's chest. "Then perhaps I should wait for him." "No," Jake said firmly, taking a step closer. "You don't understand. Martin Blackwood is worse than his brother ever was. A gambler and a drunk with a mean streak wider than the Mississippi." His voice dropped lower. "And he's not looking for a wife." The implication was clear, and Lily felt a chill despite the warm afternoon. "What would you have me do, Mr. Sullivan? I have nowhere to go and no means to get there." Jake ran a hand through his hair, clearly wrestling with some internal dilemma. After a moment, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "This came yesterday," he said, handing it to her. "It's from the land office in Denver. Seems Blackwood owed me money, and in his will he signed over a parcel of his property to settle the debt." Lily unfolded the paper, scanning the legal language without really comprehending it. "I don't understand what this has to do with me. It means I own the small homestead adjacent to my ranch now. It's nothing fancy, but it's solid. Has a good well and fertile soil. Jake's eyes met hers, steady and serious. I've been looking for someone to help run the place. My ranch keeps me busy enough. Lily's brow furrowed. Are you offering me employment? Mr. Sullivan, I'm offering you a choice, he corrected. You can wait here for Martin Blackwood and take your chances, or you can come work for me. The homestead has separate quarters. You'd have your privacy and earn a fair wage. Lily hesitated, weighing her limited options. The thought of meeting another Blackwood after what Jake had told her was unsettling, but accepting a position from a man she'd just met seemed equally risky. How do I know I can trust you? She asked. Jake's expression softened slightly. You don't. But I give you my word as a man that you'll be safe with me. I need help, not trouble. Before Lily could respond, the sound of hoof-beats drew their attention. A rider was approaching from the edge of town, moving fast. Jake tensed beside her, his hand moving instinctively to the gun at his hip. That's one of Martin's men, he said, his voice low and urgent. He's early, must have ridden ahead of the main party. The rider slowed as he approached, his gaze fixed on Lily. There was something predatory in his eyes that made her skin crawl. Well, well, the man drawled, bringing his horse to a stop. You must be the little bride Richard wrote about. Martin will be mighty pleased to meet you. Jake stepped between Lily and the rider. She's not waiting around for Martin Tucker. She's leaving. Tucker's eyes narrowed. That right. And where might she be going? That's none of your concern, Jake replied coldly. Tucker laughed a harsh sound without humor. Everything in this town is Martin's concern now, including Richard's mail-order bride. Jake's hand rested on his gun. She was packed for a man she'd never met. Richard's dead, and she's not obligated to anyone. Tucker dismounted, his own hand hovering near his weapon. Martin's already paid the stage line to hold his brother's belongings. That includes the woman. I am not property. Lily interjected, her voice stronger than she felt. I made an arrangement with Richard Blackwood, not his brother. Tucker's gaze slid to her, a slow, unpleasant smile spreading across his face. Fiery one, ain't she? Martin likes that. Jake moved, subtle but unmistakable, placing himself more firmly between Lily and Tucker. She's leaving with me, Tucker, right now. The tension between the two men was palpable, like the air before a storm. Lily found herself holding her breath, acutely aware that this confrontation could turn deadly in an instant. Tucker's hand twitched near his gun. Martin won't like that. Martin isn't here, Jake replied evenly. And when he arrives, she'll be long gone. For a moment, Lily thought Tucker might draw his weapon. Instead, he spat on the ground and remounted his horse. This isn't over, Sullivan. Martin will be here by nightfall tomorrow, and he doesn't take kindly to people interfering in his business. Neither do I. Jake said, his voice hard as iron. Tucker wheeled his horse around and galloped back the way he had come, dust billowing in his wake. Jake turned to Lily, his expression grave. We need to go now. Pack is camped about 5 miles outside town. If Tucker reports back, they might decide to ride in tonight instead of waiting. Lily's heart raced as the reality of her situation crashed down upon her. She was alone in a strange town with a dead fiancé she'd never met. His dangerous brother on the way, and her only apparent ally was a rugged rancher she'd known for all of 10 minutes. You're saying I should leave with you? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jake's blue eyes locked with hers, intense and unwavering. I'm saying you're not leaving with anyone but me if you want to stay safe. Martin Blackwood isn't the kind of man who takes no for an answer. Lily glanced down the empty street as if expecting Richard Blackwood to materialize and save her from this predicament. But there was only dust and silence and the distant sound of piano music from the saloon. I don't have much choice, do I? She said finally. Jake's expression softened slightly. There's always a choice, Miss Baker. But right now I'm offering the only safe one. Lily took a deep breath and nodded. Very well, Mr. Sullivan. I accept your offer of employment." Jake looked relieved. He whistled sharply, and a young boy emerged from the livery stable leading a magnificent chestnut stallion. "Jimmy, hitch up my wagon quick as you can and be discreet about it." The boy nodded and dashed back to the stable. Jake turned to Lily. "Well, take the back road out of town. It's longer but less likely to be watched." "My trunk," Lily said, gesturing to the large wooden box the stage a coach driver had left beside her. "We'll have to leave it," Jake said. "Take only what you can carry in that suitcase. We need to move fast and light." The thought of abandoning most of her possessions was painful, but Lily knew he was right. She knelt beside her trunk and quickly unlocked it, transferring a few essential items to her suitcase. Within minutes, the boy returned with a small wagon pulled by two sturdy-looking horses. Jake helped Lily climb onto the bench seat, then loaded her suitcase into the back. He pressed a coin into the boy's hand. "If anyone asks, you haven't seen either of us," he instructed. The boy nodded solemnly, pocketing the coin. Jake climbed up beside Lily and took the res. With a flick of his wrists, the horses moved forward, pulling the wagon down a narrow alley behind the buildings. They emerged on a rutted dirt track that wounded away from town, skirting the main road and heading into the rolling hills beyond. As Redemption Creek receded behind them, Lily cast one last glance over her shoulder at the town that was supposed to have been her new home. A strange mixture of fear and exhilaration coursed through her veins. She had come west to marry a merchant and instead found herself fleeing with a cowboy. She barely knew. "Mr. Sullivan," she said, breaking the tense silence between them, "I believe I am entitled to know more about the man into whose care I have just entrusted my safety and reputation." Jake kept his eyes on the road ahead, but a corner of his mouth lifted in what might have been a smile. "Fair enough, Miss Baker. What would you like to know?" "Everything," Lily replied. "If I am to work for you, I should know who you are." Jake was quiet for a moment, as if gathering his thoughts. "I've had my ranch for 8 years now. Came west after the war with nothing but a horse and the clothes on my back. Worked cattle drives until I saved enough to buy my own piece of land. It's not the biggest spread in the territory, but it's mine, free and clear." "You fought in the war?" Lily asked. Jake nodded, once his jaw tightening. "Union cavalry don't much like talking about those days." Lily sensed the shadows of old pain in his voice and decided not to press further on that topic. "And your dispute with Richard Blackwood? What was that about water rights?" Jake said simply. "My ranch borders. What was his property? There's a creek that runs through both. He tried to dam it up, which would have left my cattle without water. Things got heated." "Heated enough for him to be killed?" Lily asked, her voice barely audible over the creak of the wagon wheels. Jake's hands tightened on the res. "I didn't kill him, if that's what you're asking. That was the work of another neighbor he'd crossed, a man named Harrington, who's now serving time in the territorial prison." Lily studied his profile, trying to gauge whether he was telling the truth. His face gave away nothing, but something in his steady voice compelled her to believe him. "And what of this homestead where you intend to install me? What are my duties to be?" "It's a small place 2-room cabin with good bones about a 4 mile from my main house. The previous tenant was an old trapper who kept it in decent repair. There's a vegetable garden that needs tending, and I could use someone to cook meals and keep the house in order." He glanced at her. "I assume you can cook." Lily bristled slightly at the assumption. "I can, though I was raised in the city. My knowledge of frontier living is limited." Jake nodded. "You'll learn. Most do, or they don't last out here." The sun was beginning to set, painting the western sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. The road wounded through gently rolling hills covered in short grass and dotted with twisted juniper trees. In the distance, Lily could see mountains rising, their peaks already shadowed in twilight. "It's beautiful," she murmured despite herself. Jake followed her gaze. "That it is rough country, but beautiful. The ranch is in that valley ahead, just beyond those hills. They traveled in silence for a while, the only sounds the steady clop of hooves and the creak of the wagon. Lily found herself stealing glances at the man beside her, trying to reconcile the danger she'd narrowly escaped with the uncertain future that lay ahead. "Mr. Sullivan," she said finally, "I appreciate your intervention today. Truly I do. But I must know, why did you help me? You owe me nothing." Jake kept his eyes on the road, but his expression softened slightly. "Let's just say I've seen what happens to women who fall into Martin Blackwood's hands. Couldn't let that happen to you." The simple statement sent a chill through Lily. "Is he truly so terrible worse?" Jake said grimly. "He runs a gambling hall in Denver, has a reputation for acquiring pretty young women to work there. They don't serve drinks." Understanding dawned on Lily, and she felt ill. "You believe he would have forced me into such a life? I know he would have." Jake's voice was hard. "That's why we're not stopping until we reach the ranch." They crested a hill, and Jake pulled the wagon to a halt. Below them stretched a wide valley bisected by a winding creek that glinted silver in the fading light, a cluster of buildings nestled at the base of a gentle slope, a large cabin, a barn corral, and several outbuildings. Beyond them, cattle dotted the grassland's dark shapes against the green expanse. "Sullivan Ranch." Jake said, a note of pride in his voice. "Not the biggest, like I said, but it's good land. It's lovely," Lily said, genuinely impressed by the neat, well-maintained property. Jake flicked the reins, and the horses started down the hill. "The homestead is just over that rise to the east. We'll get you settled there tonight." As they approached the main house, a figure emerged from the barn, a tall, lean man with graying hair who raised a hand in greeting. "That's Hank," Jake explained. "My foreman been with me since I started the place. There are 3 other hands who work the cattle, but they're out on the range tonight." The wagon rolled to a stop in front of the house, and Hank approached, curiosity evident in his weathered face. "Evening, boss," he said, then tipped his hat to Lily. "Madam Hank, this is Miss Lily Baker," Jake said, jumping down from the wagon and offering Lily his hand to help her descend. "She'll be taking over the Palmer homestead and helping with the cooking and such." If Hank was surprised by this announcement, he hid it well. "Pleased to meet you, Miss Baker. The old Palmer place have been empty a while now." "Is it habitable?" Lily asked, suddenly concerned about the condition of her new home. "It's sound," Jake assured her. "Needs a woman's touch, maybe. But the roof doesn't leak and the stove works fine. We'll ride over there now so you can see for yourself." Hank was already unhitching one of the horses from the wagon. "I'll saddle Blaze for you, boss." Jake nodded his thanks, then turned to Lily. "Can you ride?" Lily hesitated. "I've ridden before, though not extensively." "You can ride with me then," Jake decided. "It's not far." Hank returned, leading a magnificent black geeling already saddled. Jake took the rez and mounted in one fluid motion, then extended his hand down to Lily. "Foot in the stirrup, then push up," he instructed. Lily gathered her skirts as modestly as possible and did as he said, finding herself pulled up to sit sideways in front of Jake, his arms on either side of her as he held the rez. The intimate position made her face flush, but there was nothing improper in his manner as he guided the horse away from the main house. They followed a well-worn path that curved around a stand of cottonwood trees and up a gentle slope. As they crested the hill, Lily saw the homestead below a small but sturdy cabin with a stone chimney surrounded by a picket fence that enclosed a garden plot. A well stood nearby, its wooden cover weathered by sun and rain. "It's not much," Jake said, a note of apology in his voice. "It's perfect," Lily replied, surprising herself with her sincerity. After the fear and uncertainty of the day, the little cabin looked like a haven of safety. Jake guided the horse down the slope and dismounted in front of the cabin, then helped Lily down. He tied the rez to a hitching post and led her to the door, producing a key from his pocket. "Palmer left about 6 months ago," he explained, unlocking the door. Decided to try his luck in California. Place has been empty since then. The door swung open and Jake stepped aside to let Lily enter first. The interior was dim in the fading light, but she could make out a simple open space with a stone fireplace at one end and a cast-iron stove at the other. A wooden table with 2 chairs stood in the center and shelves lined one wall. A doorway led to what she presumed was a bedroom. Jake moved to the fireplace and lit a lamp that sat on the mantel, bathing the room in a warm, golden glow. Dust motes danced in the light, but the cabin was surprisingly clean for having been vacant for months. "Hank's wife comes by occasionally to check on the place," Jake explained, seeing her surprise. "Martha likes to keep things in order." Lily moved around the small space, running her hand along the rough-hewn table. "It's quite comfortable." Jake watched her from near the fireplace, his expression unreadable. "Bedrooms through there has a good bed with a straw tick will bring fresh bedding from the main house." Lily nodded, suddenly aware of how alone they were. As if reading her thoughts, Jake moved toward the door. "I'll go fetch your suitcase and some supplies. Martha keeps the pantry well stocked so you won't go hungry. Then I'll leave you to get settled in." "Thank you, mister," Sullivan Lily said softly. "For everything." Jake paused at the door, his hand on the latch. "Jake, he said out here folks use first names." Jake Lily repeated the name, feeling strange on her tongue. "Then you must call me Lily." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "Lily it is." Then he stepped outside, closing the door behind him. Alone in the cabin, Lily sank into one of the wooden chairs, the events of the day finally catching up with her. She had come west to marry a man she'd never met, only to discover he was dead. She had narrowly escaped what sounded like a terrible fate at the hands of his brother, and now found herself employed as a housekeeper on a cattle ranch, living alone in a homestead's cabin. It was not at all what she had planned, but as she looked around at the simple, sturdy walls of her new home, Lily felt something she hadn't expected, a sense of possibility. For the first time in her life, she was truly on her own, beholden to no one but herself. The door opened and Jake returned, carrying her suitcase and a basket covered with a checkered cloth. "Food from Martha," he explained, setting the basket on the table. "Bread, cheese, some dried beef. There's a jar of preserves in there, too. Tomorrow we'll get you properly set up." "I'm grateful," Lily said, rising from her chair, "for the food and for rescuing me today." Jake looked uncomfortable with her gratitude. Anyone would have done the same. "I don't believe that's true," Lily said, "but I thank you nonetheless." Jake cleared his throat and moved toward the door. "I'll come by in the morning to show you around the property. There's a pump at the well for water and plenty of firewood stacked behind the cabin. The outhouse is just beyond that." He hesitated, then added, "Will you be all right here alone?" The concern in his voice warmed something in Lily's chest. "I'll be fine," she assured him. "I'm tougher than I look." Jake nodded, seeming satisfied with her answer. "Good night, then." "Good night, Jake," Lily replied. After he left, Lily ate a simple meal from the basket, then unpacked her few belongings. The bedroom was small but clean, with a window that looked out toward the mountains. The bed creaked when she sat on it, but the straw tick was surprisingly comfortable. As she changed into her nightgown and prepared for sleep, Lily found herself thinking about the strange turn her life had taken. She had come west, seeking security and a new beginning. The security she had hoped for was gone with Richard Blackwood's death. But perhaps this was still a beginning of sorts. With that thought in her mind, Lily Baker blew out the lamp and slept her first night on the Colorado frontier. Dawn broke clear and bright over the valley sunlight streaming through the cabin's small windows. Lily woke disoriented, momentarily forgetting where she was. The events of the previous day came rushing back, and she sat up in bed, taking in her surroundings in the morning light. The bedroom was spare but not uncomfortable, with the bed, a small chest of drawers, and a hook on the wall for clothing. A braided rug covered part of the plank floor, adding a touch of color to the otherwise plain room. Lily dressed quickly in one of her simpler dresses, a practical brown cotton with button-up sleeves that could be rolled if necessary. She splashed water on her face from a basin she'd filled the night before, then braided her long auburn hair and pinned it up neatly. In the main room, she rekindled the fire in the stove, using the dry kindling she found in a box beside it. Soon she had a pot of coffee brewing, its rich aroma filling the small space. There was still bread and cheese from the basket Jake had brought, enough for a simple breakfast. As she ate, Lily surveyed her new domain with a critical eye. The cabin was solid and well-built, but it showed signs of neglect. Dust had accumulated in corners and cobwebs phoned the ceiling beams. The windows were grimy, obscuring the otherwise beautiful view. "Well," she said aloud to herself, "if I'm to be a housekeeper, I might as well begin with my own house." She had just finished washing her breakfast dishes when a knock sounded at the door. Lily smoothed her hair and straightened her apron before answering. Jake stood on the threshold, hat in hand. He was freshly shaven, his dark hair still damp, and dressed in clean work clothes, a blue cotton shirt, canvas trousers, and scuffed boots. The morning sun highlighted the strong lines of his face, and Lily found herself noticing how the blue of his shirt matched his eyes. "Morning," he said, his gaze taking in her appearance. "Sleep well?" "Very well, thank you," Lily replied, stepping back to allow him entry. "The coffee is still hot if you'd like some." Jake accepted the offer with a nod, and Lily poured him a cup in one of the 2 mugs she'd found in the cupboard. He took it gratefully, his fingers brushing hers in the exchange. "I've brought some things from the main house," he said, gesturing to a burlap sack outside the door. "Fresh bedding, some towels, soap, and a few other necessities Martha thought you might need." "That's very kind," Lily said. "Please thank Martha for me. I look forward to meeting her." "She'll be by later today," Jake said, sipping his coffee. "She's curious about you. We don't get many new faces out here, especially not." He trailed off, seeming to catch himself. "Especially not mail-order brides who arrive to find their intended husbands dead," Lily supplied with a wry smile. Jake's eyes crinkled at the corners. "Something like that." He set down his empty cup. "Ready for that tour." Lily nodded and followed him outside. The morning was crisp and clear, the air scented with sage and pine. From the cabin's porch, she could see across the valley to the mountains beyond, their peaks still capped with snow despite the summer warmth. "The garden needs work," Jake said, leading her to the fenced plot beside the cabin, "but the soil's good. Martha kept some things growing. There's potatoes, onions, and some herbs that survived the neglect." Lily examined the overgrown garden. Weeds had claimed much of it, but she could see the neat rows that had once been there. "I can have this back in shape in no time," she said confidently. Though her experience with gardening was limited to the small herb pots her mother had kept on their Boston apartment windowsill. Jake showed her the well, demonstrating how to operate the pump, then led her around the property. Beyond the cabin was a small barn with a lean-to attached. Palmer kept a milk cow and some chickens. Jake explained, sliding open the barn door. The interior was dim and dusty, but solid. "If you're interested, we could bring a cow over from the main herd. Chickens, too." The thought of having animals to care for was both daunting and appealing. "I think I'd like that," Lily said. "Though I should warn you, my experience with livestock is non-existent." Jake's mouth quirked in that almost smile she was beginning to recognize. "Everyone starts somewhere. Martha can show you what to do with the chickens. As for milking, it's not difficult once you get the hang of it." They continued the tour, Jake pointing out the boundaries of the homestead. It was approximately 40 acres, he explained, with the cabin situated near the center. A small creek, a tributary of the larger one that ran through the valley, cut across one corner of the property. "This is where Blackwood and I had our dispute," Jake said as they approached the creek. He owned this land before, and he tried to dam the creek upstream, which would have cut off water to my north pasture. Lily studied the clear, burbling water. It's hard to imagine men fighting over something so small. Jake's expression darkened. Out here, water is life. Without it, cattle die, crops fail, people suffer. Blackwood knew exactly what he was doing. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the play of sunlight on the water. Then Jake seemed to shake off his dark mood and turned back toward the cabin. "The main house is about a 4-mile that way," he said, pointing west. "If you need anything, you can ride over or send word with anyone who passes by. One of the hands usually checks this way once a day." As they walked back, Lily gathered her courage to ask the question that had been on her mind since waking. "What of Martin Blackwood? Do you think he'll come looking for me?" Jake's jaw tightened. "It's possible, but he has no claim on you, legal or otherwise. If he shows up, we'll deal with it." Lily asked softly. Jake met her eyes directly. "You're under my protection now, Lily. That means something out here." The sincerity in his voice touched her deeply. In Boston, she had been just another poor young woman, invisible to most and vulnerable to many. Here, standing in the morning sun with this strong, steady man, she felt seen and valued in a way she never had before. "Thank you," she said simply. They reached the cabin, and Jake hesitated at the porch steps. "I should get back to work. The cattle need moving to the north pasture today." Lily nodded. "And I have plenty to do here. This place won't clean itself. Martha will be by around noon with some more supplies." Jake said, "If you need anything before then, I'll be fine," Lily assured him. "Go tend to your cattle." Jake settled his hat back on his head and mounted his horse, which had been ground-tied nearby. "I'll come check on you this evening," he said, then rode away, his straight-backed silhouette soon disappearing over the rise. Lily turned back to the cabin, rolling up her sleeves. There was work to be done, and she was determined to prove herself useful in this new life. The morning passed quickly as Lily scrubbed floors, washed windows, and swept away cobwebs. By the time Martha arrived, the cabin was transformed, still simple but clean and bright, with a bunch of wild flowers Lily had gathered adorning the table. Martha was a surprise. Lily had expected someone older, but Jake's foreman's wife was perhaps only 10 years her senior, a handsome woman with streaks of silver in her dark hair and laugh lines around her eyes. She arrived in a small wagon laden with supplies. "So you're the mail-order bride," Martha said by way of greeting, looking Lily up and down with frank curiosity. "Jake told us what happened. Terrible business with the Blackwoods." "I'm fortunate Mr. Sullivan Jake was there," Lily replied, helping Martha unload the wagon. Martha's eyes twinkled. "That you are. Jake's a good man. One of the best, and easy on the eyes, too, if you don't mind my saying so." Lily felt her cheeks warm. "I wouldn't know about that. I'm merely grateful for his help." Martha's knowing smile suggested she didn't believe that for a minute, but she didn't press the issue. Instead, she helped Lily organize the supplies. She'd brought flour, sugar, coffee, dried beans, salt pork, and various other staples. "I've brought a laying hen and 2 pullets," Martha said, indicating a crate in the wagon. "They'll need a coop, but Hank says he'll come by tomorrow to build one. For now, they can stay in the barn." Lily eyed the chickens with a mixture of interest and trepidation. "I've never kept chickens before." "It's simple enough," Martha assured her. "Feed them. Keep them safe from predators. Collect the eggs. I'll show you." The 2 women spent the next hour setting up the chickens in a temporary pen in the barn. Martha was patient and good-humored, explaining everything clearly. Lily found herself warming to the older woman's straightforward manner. "Jake says, 'You're from Boston,'" Martha said as they walked back to the cabin. "What brought you out here to marry a man you'd never met?" The direct question might have seemed intrusive from someone else, but Martha's genuine interest made Lily want to answer honestly. "My parents died of influenza 3 years ago," she explained. "I had been working as a seamstress, but the pay was poor and the conditions were worse." When I saw Richard Blackwood's advertisement for a bride, it seemed like a chance for a better life. Martha nodded sympathetically. Many women come west for the same reason. Some find what they're looking for, others don't. But you seem like the sort who will land on her feet. I hope so, Lily said. I'm determined to make this work even if it's not what I planned. That's the spirit Martha approved. And working for Jake is a good opportunity. He's fair and decent, and he needs someone to look after things. He works too hard and takes too little care of himself. You seem fond of him, Lily observed. Martha smiled. Hank and I have been with Jake since he started this ranch, saw him build it from nothing but hard work and determination. He's like family to us. Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of approaching riders. Martha tensed, moving to the window to look out. It's just Hank and Lewis, she said, relaxing. One of our ranch hands. The two men dismounted in front of the cabin. Hank, whom Lily had briefly met the night before, was tall and lean with graying hair. Lewis was younger, perhaps in his early 30s, with a weathered face and a quick smile. Ladies, Hank greeted them, removing his hat. Jake sent us to check on things and to bring this. He held up a leather bridle. Said Miss Baker might need a horse if she's going to be living out here. A horse, Lily echoed, surprised. Can't have you walking everywhere, Hank said. Boss has set aside a gentle mare for you. She's in the barn now. Lewis here will show you how to saddle and care for her. Lewis nodded, his smile widening. She's a good horse, Miss Very Calm, good for a beginner. The gift was unexpected and touched Lily deeply. A horse represented freedom and independence in this vast country, and the fact that Jake had thought to provide one spoke volumes about his character. That's very generous of him, she said. Please thank him for me. You can thank him yourself, Hank replied. He'll be by this evening. In the meantime, we're to help with anything you need. The men stayed for an hour. Lewis patiently teaching Lily the basics of caring for her new horse, a pretty bay mare named Daisy, while Hank examined the cabin and made a list of repairs needed. They promised to return the next day to start work on the chicken coop and fix a loose board on the porch. After they left, Martha helped Lily prepare a stew for dinner, offering cooking tips and sharing stories about the ranch and its people. By the time she departed in the late afternoon, Lily felt as though she'd made her first real friend in Colorado. Alone again, Lily took stock of her situation. In just over 24 hours, her life had completely changed course. Instead of becoming a merchant's wife in town, she was a housekeeper on a cattle ranch, living alone in a homestead's cabin with 3 chickens and a horse. The thought made her laugh out loud, a sound of surprise and wonder rather than humor. As the sun began to set, Lily lit the lamps and checked on the stew simmering on the stove. She had just set the table when a knock came at the door. Her heart quickened inexplicably as she went to answer it. Jake stood on the porch, hat in hand as before. He looked tired, but satisfied the way men do after a day of physical labor well done. Evening, he said. Something smells good. Rabbit stew, Lily replied, stepping back to let him enter. Martha brought the rabbit already dressed. She's been very kind. Martha's the best, Jake agreed, hanging his hat on a peg by the door. How was your first day? Busy but good, Lily said, moving to the stove to stir the stew. I've cleaned the cabin, met the chickens, and learned the basics of horse care from Lewis Swiss. Thank you for Daisy, by the way. She's lovely. Jake looked pleased. Figured you'd need a way to get around. Daisy's steady and sweet-tiered. She'll serve you well. I've never owned a horse before, Lily admitted. In Boston, we took streetcars or walked. Things are different out here, Jake said, taking a seat at the table when Lily gestured for him to do so. Distances are greater. A good horse can be the difference between life and death sometimes. Lily ladled stew into bowls and placed one before Jake along with a chunk of the bread Martha had brought. She sat across from him, suddenly aware of the domestic intimacy of the scene, the two of them dining together in the warm glow of lamplight. I saw Hank and Lewis rode out this way, Jake said, after a few bites of stew. Everything all right? Yes, they were very helpful, Lily assured him. Hank made a list of repairs and Lewis taught me about Daisy. Jake nodded, seeming satisfied. Good. I want you to feel safe and comfortable here. I do, Lily said, surprising herself with the truth of it. Despite the strange circumstances that had brought her here, she already felt more at home in this simple cabin than she ever had in her cramped Boston apartment. They ate in companionable silence for a while, the only sounds the clink of spoons against bowls and the occasional crackle from the stove. Finally, Jake set down his spoon and looked at her directly. There's something you should know, he said, his voice serious. I rode into town today to check on things. Martin Blackwood arrived last night with 5 men. They're asking questions about you. Lily's stomach tightened with fear. Do they know where I am? Not yet, Jake said grimly. But it's a small territory. Word gets around. Blackwood's offering a reward for information about your whereabouts. A reward Lily echoed, stunned. But why he doesn't even know me? Jake's expression hardened. It's not about you specifically. It's about what you represent. In his mind, you belong to his brother, which means you now belong to him. Men like Martin Blackwood don't like losing what they consider their property. Lily felt ill. What do we do for now? Nothing, Jake said. You stay here out of sight. I've told the hands not to mention you to anyone outside the ranch. Blackwood may sniff around for a while, but eventually he'll give up and go back to Denver. And if he doesn't? Lily asked quietly. Jake's blue eyes were steady and determined. Then we deal with him, but it won't come to that. He has business in Denver that needs his attention. He can't stay in Redemption Creek forever. Lily wanted to believe him, but fear had lodged in her chest like a cold stone. I've brought trouble to your door, she said. I'm sorry for that. Jake reached across the table and after a moment's hesitation placed his hand over hers. His palm was warm and calloused, the touch sending a surprising jolt through her. This isn't your fault, he said firmly. And you're not alone in this. Remember that. The sincerity in his voice and the warmth of his hand on hers eased some of the fear. Lily nodded, summoning a small smile. Thank you. Jake withdrew his hand, clearing his throat. The stew was good, he said, changing the subject. You're a fine cook. Martha deserves most of the credit, Lily replied. She's an excellent teacher. Jake stood reaching for his hat. I should head back. Dawn comes early and we're moving cattle tomorrow. Lily walked him to the door. Will I see you tomorrow? Probably not until evening, Jake said. But Hank and Lewis will be by to work on the chicken coop and porch. Martha might come too. He hesitated, then added, Bar the door tonight and keep the rifle by your bed. Rifle, Lily asked, alarmed. Jake pointed to a gun rack on the wall that Lily hadn't noticed before. A Winchester repeating rifle hung there along with a gun belt holding a revolver. Palmer left those behind, Jake explained. They're loaded and ready. Do you know how to use them? Lily shook her head. I've never fired a gun in my life. I'll teach you, Jake promised. Not tonight, but soon. For now, just keep them close. The thought of needing weapons was unsettling, but Lily appreciated his concern for her safety. I will. Jake settled his hat on his head and stepped onto the porch. Good night, Lily. Good night, Jake, she replied softly. After he left, Lily carefully barred the door as instructed and took the rifle from its rack. It was heavier than she expected, and she handled it gingerly, setting it beside her bed as Jake had suggested. The weight of it on the floor beside her was both reassuring and disturbing, a reminder of the potential dangers lurking in her new life. But as she blew out the lamp and settled under the covers, Lily found herself thinking not of Martin Blackwood and his men, but of Jake Sullivan. The memory of his hand covering hers lingered warm and comforting as she drifted off to sleep. The next week passed in a blur of activity as Lily settled into her new routine. Each day brought new challenges and skills to master caring for the chickens, tending the garden she'd reclaimed from weeds, learning to ride Daisy with growing confidence. Hank and Lewis built a proper chicken coop and repaired the loose porch board while Martha visited regularly, teaching Lily the domestic skills needed for frontier living. Jake came by each evening, sometimes staying for the meal Lily prepared, other times just checking briefly to ensure she was safe and had everything she needed. Their conversations gradually became more relaxed, and Lily found herself looking forward to his visits with an eagerness that surprised her. On the fifth day, Jake brought news that both relieved and unsettled her. Martin Blackwood left town this morning. He said as they sat on the porch after dinner watching the sunset paint the mountains in shades of purple and gold. Headed back to Denver, according to Sheriff Collins. Lily's shoulders sagged with relief. So it's over. He's given up looking for me. Jake's expression remained cautious. For now, maybe. But men like Blackwood have long memories and big egos. I wouldn't count on him forgetting about you entirely. But surely he can't keep searching indefinitely, Lily reasoned. As you said, he has business in Denver. True enough, Jake conceded. And the longer you're here established as my employee, the less claim he can make on you. He glanced at her. How are you finding it, the work, I mean? Lily considered the question seriously. It's hard work, harder than anything I've done before, she admitted. But there's satisfaction in it. I like seeing the results of my labor, the clean cabin, the growing garden, the eggs the chickens provide. Jake nodded, understanding in his eyes. That's the thing about ranch life. The work never ends, but there's meaning in it, purpose. Yes, exactly, Lily said, pleased that he understood. In Boston, I sewed seams on gentlemen's shirts for 14 hours a day, but I never saw the finished product, never knew who wore them or if my work mattered. They sat in companionable silence for a while, watching the last light fade from the sky. Stars began to appear, more than Lily had ever seen in the city. Tomorrow, Jake said suddenly. I thought I might show you more of the ranch if you're interested. Lily turned to him, surprised and pleased by the offer. I'd like that very much. Good, Jake said, standing. I'll come by around 9. Wear your riding skirt. The next morning dawned clear and bright. Lily dressed carefully in the split riding skirt Martha had helped her alter from one of her old dresses, paired with a simple shirt-waist and sturdy boots. She braided her hair and pinned it up, then set a straw hat on top to shield her face from the sun. Jake arrived promptly at 9, mounted on his black geeling. Lily had Daisy saddled and ready, having practiced the skill diligently under Lewis's tutelage. You're becoming quite the horsewoman, Jake observed as Lily mounted with growing confidence. I have good teachers, she replied, settling into the saddle, and Daisy is very patient with my mistakes. They rode side by side up the hill and down into the main valley where the Sullivan Ranch spread before them. In the daylight, Lily could appreciate the full extent of the property. The vast grasslands dotted with cattle, the creek winding through like a silver ribbon, the cluster of buildings that formed the ranch headquarters. How many acres do you have? She asked as they rode. 3,000, Jake replied. Not the biggest spread in the territory, but good land, well watered. We run about 500 head of cattle. And you built all this yourself? Lily asked, impressed. Jake's expression softened with pride. Started with 50 acres and 10 cows. Worked cattle drives in the summer to earn money for more land. Built the cabin myself, then the barn. Hired Hank as my first hand when I could afford it. Been adding to it ever since. It's remarkable, Lily said sincerely. You should be proud. Jake looked pleased by her praise. Come on, I'll show you the north pasture. It's the prettiest part of the ranch. They rode for over an hour, Jake pointing out landmarks and explaining the operation of the ranch. Lily listened attentively, asking questions and admiring the beauty of the land. The north pasture, as Jake had promised, was especially beautiful. A wide meadow filled with wild flowers bordered by a stand of aspen trees, whose leaves shimmered like gold coins in the breeze. They dismounted by the creek that ran along the edge of the meadow, letting the horses drink while they stretched their legs. Jake spread a blanket on a grassy spot, and they sat down to share the lunch Lily had packed: cold chicken bread cheese and apple tarts. "This is wonderful," Lily said, gazing out at the meadow. "Thank you for bringing me here." Jake studied her profile, something unreadable in his expression. "You're different from what I expected," he said finally. Lily turned to him, curious. "Oh, and what did you expect?" Jake seemed to choose his words carefully. "When I first saw you in town standing there with your suitcase looking lost, I thought you'd be fragile city-bred, unsuited for this life." "And now," Lily prompted when he fell silent. "Now I see you're stronger than you look," Jake said. "Adaptable. You've taken to ranch life better than most who come from the East." Lily was warmed by his assessment. "Thank you, though I still have much to learn." "We all do," Jake said simply. Then after a moment, "Tell me about your life in Boston." What was it like? No one had asked Lily about her past since she'd arrived, and she found herself eager to share it with him. She told him about growing up in a small apartment above a chandler's shop, her father a bookkeeper, her mother a seamstress. She described the crowded streets, the noise and bustle of the city, the struggle to make ends meet after her parents died. "It sounds hard," Jake said when she finished. "It was," Lily acknowledged. "But there were good things, too. Museums where you could see beautiful paintings for free on Sundays, libraries full of books, music in the public gardens in summer." "Do you miss it?" Jake asked, watching her closely. Lily considered the question honestly. "I miss certain aspects of it," she said finally. "The accessibility of culture, perhaps the familiarity of it, but I don't miss the dirt, the noise, the feeling of being trapped in a life with no prospects for improvement." She gestured to the open meadow before them. "And it's hard to miss the city when this is the alternative." Jake smiled, a real smile that transformed his face and made Lily's heart skip a beat. "I feel the same way. Came west after the war because I couldn't stand the confinement of the city anymore. Needed space to breathe." "Did you grow up in a city?" Lily asked, realizing how little she knew about his past. "Cincinnati," Jake said. "My father was a factory foreman and expected me to follow in his footsteps, but after what I saw in the war, he trailed off, the shadow of old memories darkening his eyes." Lily waited, not pressing him to continue. After a moment, Jake seemed to shake off the darkness. "Anyway, I headed west instead. Best decision I ever made." They finished their lunch and packed up the remnants. As they prepared to mount up again, Jake said, "There's something else I want to show you if you're not too tired." "I'm fine," Lily assured him. "Lead on." They rode for another half hour, climbing a gentle slope to a ridge that overlooked the entire valley. From this vantage point, Lily could see not only the Sullivan Ranch, but also the town of Redemption Creek. In the distance, the stage of Coach Road, winding toward it like a tan ribbon. "It's breathtaking," Lily said, gazing out at the panorama. "I come up here sometimes when I need to think." Jake said, his voice quiet. "Helps put things in perspective." They dismounted again, standing side by side at the edge of the ridge. A warm breeze lifted tendrils of hair that had escaped Lily's braid, and she tucked them back absently, aware of Jake watching her. "I'm glad you came west, Lily," he said suddenly, "even if the circumstances were unusual." Lily turned to face him, struck by the sincerity in his voice. "So am I." Something shifted in the air between them, a tension that hadn't been there before. Jake took a step closer. Close enough that Lily could see the flecks of gray in his blue eyes, the slight scar on his chin half hidden by stubble. "Lee," he began, his voice rough. Whatever he might have said was interrupted by the distant sound of a gunshot, followed by several more in quick succession. Jake's head snapped up, his body tensing. "That's coming from the direction of the homestead," he said, already moving toward his horse. "Get mounted now." Lily scrambled into Daisy's saddle, fear clutching at her throat. Jake was already galloping down the ridge, and she urged Daisy to follow, struggling to keep up with his breakneck pace. As they crested the hill above her cabin, Lily saw the source of the gunfire. 3 riders were circling the homestead, one of them shooting into the air. Even from a distance, she recognized Tucker Martin Blackwood's man. Jake reined in his horse, reaching for the rifle in his saddle scabbard. "Stay here," he ordered Lily. "If anything happens to me, ride for the main house. Hank will help you." "Jake, no," Lily protested, terrified at the thought of him facing 3 armed men alone, but Jake was already spurring his horse down the hill, rifle raised. "Sullivan," he shouted as he approached. "This is Sullivan land. State your business or get off my property." The 3 riders wheeled to face him, Tucker in the lead. They spread out, creating a line of opposition. Tucker held up his hands, showing he was unarmed at the moment, though his pistol was holstered at his hip. "Easy, Sullivan," Tucker called. "Just delivering a message from Mr. Blackwood." Jake kept his rifle trained on Tucker, his voice cold. "I thought Blackwood went back to Denver." "He did," Tucker confirmed. "But he asked me to convey his disappointment that you've hidden away his brother's bride. He feels that's stealing and missed her." Blackwood takes a dim view of thieves. "Miss Baker was never his brother's bride," Jake replied evenly. "Richard died before she arrived. She's under my employment now, fair and legal." Tucker's smile was unpleasant. "Mr. Blackwood disagrees. He's willing to compensate you for your inconvenience. $500 for the woman. That's generous, considering she's damaged goods, now living alone with a man not her husband." Lily's face burned with humiliation and anger at Tucker's insinuation. She urged Daisy forward, ignoring Jake's earlier order to stay back. "I am not property to be bought and sold," she said, her voice carrying clearly in the still air. "Please inform Mr. Blackwood that I have no intention of honoring any arrangement he believes existed between his brother and myself. I am where I choose to be." Tucker's eyes narrowed as he regarded her. "Fiery, just like I thought. Martin will enjoy breaking that spirit." He turned back to Jake. "The offer stands until sundown tomorrow. After that, Mr. Blackwood will be forced to take more direct measures. Is that a threat?" Jake asked, his voice dangerously quiet. Tucker shrugged. "Just passing along a message. But if I were you, I'd take the money. No woman is worth dying for, especially not a mail-order bride with nothing to her name." Jake's finger tightened on the trigger of his rifle. "Get off my land," he said. "Now, and tell Blackwood that if he or any of his men set foot on my property again, I'll shoot them for trespassing." Tucker assessed Jake for a long moment, then apparently decided the threat was genuine. He signaled to his companions and they turned their horses. "Sundown tomorrow, Sullivan," Tucker called over his shoulder. "Think about it." They rode away, dust rising from their horse' hooves. Jake kept his rifle trained on them until they disappeared over the rise, then lowered it with a heavy sigh. Lily moved Daisy beside his horse. "I'm so sorry, Jake. This is all my fault." Jake turned to her, his expression fierce. "None of this is your fault. Blackwood is a bully and a criminal who thinks he can take whatever he wants. But he's wrong. Dead wrong." The vehemence in his voice startled Lily. "What are we going to do?" Jake's jaw said in a determined line. "First, we're going back to the main house. You'll stay there tonight where it's safer. Then I'll send for the sheriff." "And if the sheriff can't or won't help?" Lily asked quietly. Jake's eyes met hers, steady and resolute. "Then we'll handle it ourselves." They rode to the main ranch house, in tense silence. Hank and Martha were alarmed by the news, quickly preparing a room for Lily in the main house. Lewis and the other hands were called in from the range, and Jake briefed them on the situation. "I want 2 men on watch at all times," he instructed. "No one rides alone until this is settled." As darkness fell, the ranch took on the atmosphere of a fortress preparing for siege. Weapons were checked and loaded, horses kept saddled in case of need. Lily helped Martha prepare a hearty meal for the men grateful for the distraction of work. After dinner, Jake found Lily on the porch, gazing up at the stars that seemed dimmer and more distant than they had earlier that day. "Are you all right?" he asked, joining her at the railing. "I'm worried," Lily admitted. Not just for myself, but for all of you. These men have put you in danger because of me. Jake's hand covered hers on the railing. We protect our own here, he said simply. You're one of us now. The words warmed her despite her fear. What will happen tomorrow? The sheriff should arrive by noon. Jake said, he's a good man, fair and honest. He won't let Blackwood bully his way into taking you. And if the sheriff doesn't come? Lily pressed. Or if Blackwood ignores his authority? Jake was quiet for a long moment. Then we fight, he said finally. But it won't come to that. Blackwood is a coward at heart. He preys on the weak and vulnerable. When he sees you have protection, he'll back down. Lily wasn't so sure, but she nodded, wanting to believe him. I hope you're right. Jake turned to face her, his expression serious in the dim light from the window. Lily, there's something I need to say in case things don't go as planned tomorrow. Lily's heart quickened at his tone. What is it? Jake took both her hands in his. When I first saw you in town, standing there with your suitcase, I felt something I can't explain. A connection. Like I was meant to find you that day. Lily's breath caught in her throat. I felt it too, she whispered. These past days, getting to know you, seeing your strength and determination. Jake paused, seemingly searching for words. I know it's fast, maybe too fast, but life out here doesn't always give us the luxury of time. He stepped closer, his eyes holding hers. If we make it through tomorrow, I'd like a chance to court you properly. Not as my employee, but as a woman I'm coming to care for deeply. Joy blossomed in Lily's chest, pushing back the fear that had clouded her all evening. I'd like that very much, Jake. Jake's smile was tender, as he raised one hand to gently touch her cheek. Whatever happens tomorrow, know that I'll protect you with my life. I don't want you risking your life for me, Lily said earnestly. Perhaps I should just leave. Go somewhere Blackwood can't find me. Running isn't the answer, Jake said firmly. This is your home now if you want it to be, and I won't let anyone drive you from it. Home. The word resonated in Lily's heart. In just over a week, this place and this man had come to mean more to her than she had thought possible. Jake's hand still rested against her cheek, warm and calloused. Slowly giving her time to pull away if she wished, he leaned forward and pressed his lips to hers in a gentle kiss. It was brief and chaste, but it sent warmth spreading through Lily like sunshine. When he pulled back, Jake's eyes were dark with emotion. Get some rest, he said softly. Tomorrow will be a long day. Lily nodded, unable to find words. Jake squeezed her hands once more, then released them and stepped back, a reluctant smile playing at his lips. Good night, Lily, he said. Good night, Jake, she replied, watching as he turned and walked back into the house. Lily remained on the porch for a few minutes longer, her fingers touching her lips where Jake had kissed her. Despite the danger looming on the horizon, she felt a glimmer of hope. Whatever tomorrow brought, they would face it together. Morning came too quickly, the peaceful darkness giving way to a dawn filled with tension. Lily rose early, helping Martha prepare breakfast for the ranch hands, all of whom looked grim and determined. Jake was nowhere to be seen, having gone out before dawn to check the perimeter of the property with Hank. When he finally returned, Jake looked tired but alert. He accepted a cup of coffee from Lily with a grateful nod, their eyes meeting briefly in silent communication. Any sign of them? Lewis asked as Jake joined the men at the table. Jake shook his head. Nothing yet, but they'll come. Blackwood's not the type to make empty threats. Sheriff should be here soon, Hank said, checking his pocket watch. Messenger would have reached him last night. Jake nodded, sipping his coffee. We'll hold the house. It's the most defensible position. Lily and Martha will stay inside away from the windows. Martha made a sound of disagreement. I can handle a shotgun as well as any man here, Jake Sullivan, and you know it. Jake's mouth quirked in a half-smile. That I do, Martha, but I need you to keep Lily safe if things go bad. Martha subsided, though she didn't look happy about it. Fine, but I'm keeping the shotgun with me. By mid-morning, the sheriff had not arrived and the tension in the house was palpable. Jake stationed men at various points around the property, with clear instructions to fire warning shots if they spotted Blackwood's men approaching. Lily tried to keep busy helping Martha with domestic tasks, but her mind kept returning to the danger they all faced because of her. When she couldn't stand the waiting any longer, she sought out Jake, finding him in the study cleaning his revolver. "Still no sign of the sheriff?" she asked from the doorway. Jake looked up, his expression softening when he saw her. "Not yet, but there's still time." Lily entered the room, closing the door behind her. "Jake, I've been thinking, perhaps I should just go with Blackwood's men." Jake was on his feet immediately, his face thunderous. "Absolutely not." "Absolutely. Do you have any idea what kind of man Martin Blackwood is, what he does to women in his employment?" "I have some idea," Lily said quietly. "But I can't bear the thought of you or your men being hurt because of me." Jake crossed the room in 2 strides, taking her by the shoulders. "Listen to me, Lily. You are not going anywhere with Blackwood or his men. I won't allow it." The fierce protectiveness in his voice sent a shiver through her. "I don't want to be the cause of bloodshed," she whispered. Jake's grip on her shoulders gentled, and one hand moved to cup her cheek. "You're worth fighting for," he said simply. "Worth dying for if it comes to that, though I don't intend to die today." Lily leaned into his touch, drawing strength from his certainty. "What can I do to help? Stay inside, stay low, and be ready to move quickly if I give the word," Jake said. "And know that no matter what happens, He was interrupted by a shout from outside. Riders coming, at least 10 of them. Jake was moving instantly, grabbing his gun belt and strapping it on. "Stay with Martha," he instructed Lily, his voice calm but urgent. "If shooting starts, get to the root cellar. There's a trap door under the rug in the pantry." Before Lily could respond, Jake was gone, striding out of the room with purpose. She followed more slowly, her heart pounding. From the kitchen window, she could see Jake and his men taking positions around the house and barn, rifles ready. A group of riders appeared on the ridge, more than the 3 who had come yesterday. They approached slowly, confidently, spreading out as they neared the ranch buildings. At their head rode a man Lily had never seen before, tall and broad-shouldered with a neatly trimmed beard and expensive clothes. Even at a distance, she could sense an aura of menace about him. "That's Martin Blackwood," Martha said from beside her, her voice tight. "Bastard." Lily watched as Jake stepped forward to meet the riders, standing tall and unafraid in the yard. Hank and Lewis flanked him, rifles at the ready. The other ranch hands were positioned strategically around the property, creating a formidable defense. Martin Blackwood reined in his horse about 20 yards from Jake, signaling his men to halt. "Sullivan," he called, his voice carrying clearly, "I believe you have something that belongs to me." "Nothing here belongs to you, Blackwood," Jake replied evenly. "This is Sullivan land and you're trespassing." Blackwood smiled, a cold expression that didn't reach his eyes. "My brother's bride is here. I've come to collect her, as is my right as Richard's next of kin." "Miss Baker was never your brother's bride," Jake said. "She arrived after his death and is now under my employment. She has no obligation to you." Blackwood's smile disappeared. "I've paid good money to bring that woman west. I don't intend to leave without her." "Then you'll be disappointed," Jake replied, his hand resting casually on his holstered revolver. "Miss Baker stays here under my protection." The tension in the yard was thick enough to cut with a knife. Blackwood's men shifted restlessly, hands near their weapons. Jake and his ranch hands remained still waiting. "I see you're determined to be difficult," Blackwood said finally. "Perhaps this will change your mind?" He gestured, and 2 of his men rode forward, dragging a 3rd figure between them. Lily gasped as she recognized the bound and bloodied form of Sheriff Collins. The lawman looked barely conscious, his face bruised and swollen. "Found him on the road this morning," Blackwood explained casually. "Seems he was on his way here. We had a discussion about jurisdiction and authority." He prodded the sheriff with the toe of his boot. He now understands that I am the law in these parts. Jake's expression darkened with anger. You've made a mistake, Blackwood. Assaulting a federal officer is a hanging offense. Blackwood shrugged. Only if someone lies to report it. Now about the woman. My offer of $500 still stands. That's more than generous for damaged goods. She's not for sale, Jake growled. And neither is my ranch. Get off my land before I put a bullet in you. Blackwood's eyes narrowed. You're outnumbered, Sullivan. Be reasonable. The woman isn't worth dying for. That's where you're wrong, Jake said quietly. Something in his tone must have conveyed his absolute resolve, because Blackwood studied him for a long moment, then signaled to his men. They spread out further clearly, preparing for a fight. Last chance, Sullivan A. Blackwood called. Send out the woman and you all live. Keep her, and we burn this ranch to the ground with you in it. Lily couldn't stand it anymore. These men, good men, were about to die because of her. Without thinking, she pulled away from Martha's restraining hand and ran out the back door. Lily, no! Martha cried, but it was too late. Lily circled around the house, emerging into the yard where all eyes turned to her. Jake's face went pale with fear when he saw her. Get back inside, he shouted. But Lily stepped forward, her chin high, despite the terror churning in her stomach. Mr. Blackwood, she called, her voice surprisingly steady. I am Lily Baker. I believe you're looking for me. Blackwood's expression shifted to one of predatory interest. Indeed, I am, Miss Baker. My brother spoke highly of you in his letters. Your brother is dead, Lily said bluntly. Any arrangement I had was with him, not you. I have no intention of honoring it with a man I neither know nor respect. Anger flashed in Blackwood's eyes. You don't have a choice, girl. You're coming with me one way or another. The only way she's leaving is over my dead body, Jake said, moving to stand beside Lily. His hand found hers, gripping it tightly. Blackwood's mouth twisted in a sneer. That can be arranged. The sound of a rifle being cocked echoed in the sudden silence, but it didn't come from Jake's men or Blackwood's. It came from behind them. I believe this has gone far enough, said a new voice, calm and authoritative. All heads turned to see a group of riders approaching from the east, at least 20 men in the distinctive uniforms of the U.S. Cavalry led by a stern-faced officer with captain's bars on his shoulders. Captain Monroe. Jake said, relief evident in his voice. Your timing is impeccable. The captain nodded to Jake, then fixed his gaze on Blackwood. Martin Blackwood. We've been looking for you. You're wanted for questioning in connection with several crimes in Denver, including the operation of an illegal gambling establishment and the suspected trafficking of women. Blackwood's face darkened with fury. You have no jurisdiction here, Captain. This is a civil matter between me and Sullivan. Assaulting a federal officer gives me all the jurisdiction I need, Monroe replied, gesturing to the injured sheriff. 2 soldiers immediately moved to help the lawman. And attacking a former Union cavalry officer who happens to be a personal friend of General Sherman. That was unwise. Jake's hand squeezed Lily's, and she glanced at him in surprise. He hadn't mentioned any connection to General Sherman, one of the most powerful men in the country. Blackwood seemed to realize he was outmaneuvered. His men looked nervously at the cavalry soldiers, clearly calculating the odds. This isn't over, Sullivan, Blackwood spat. The woman is still rightfully mine. No, Lily said clearly. I am my own person, Mr. Blackwood. I choose where I go and who I'm with, and I choose to stay here with Jake Sullivan. Jake's eyes met hers, filled with a warmth that made her heart swell despite the tension surrounding them. Captain Monroe signaled to his men, who moved to surround Blackwood and his gang. Martin Blackwood, you and your men are under arrest for the assault of Sheriff Collins and for threatening citizens of this territory. Surrender your weapons. For a moment it seemed Blackwood might resist. His hand twitched toward his gun, and Lily's breath caught in her throat. But a glance at the determined faces of the cavalry soldiers made him reconsider. With a curse, he drew his revolver carefully, using only 2 fingers, and tossed it to the ground. His men followed suit, disarming under the watchful eyes of the soldiers. Within minutes, they were all in custody, being led away under heavy guard. Captain Monroe approached Jake and Lily, satisfaction evident in his weathered face. "When your message reached Fort Lar-Amy, I knew we needed to move quickly," he said to Jake. "Martin Blackwood has been a thorn in our side for years. This gives us the excuse we needed to bring him in." "Thank you, James," Jake said, genuine gratitude in his voice. "I wasn't sure if my message would reach you in time." The captain smiled. "For the man who saved my life at Shiloh. I'd have come if I had to ride all night." He turned to Lily and tipped his hat. "Madam, I'm pleased we arrived in time to prevent any unpleasantness." "As am I, Captain," Lily replied fervently. "Thank you for your assistance." Monroe nodded. "Blackwood and his men will face justice. The sheriff needs medical attention, but he'll recover. Is there anything else you need before we depart?" Jake shook his head. "You've done more than enough, old friend. I owe you." "Consider us even," Monroe said with a smile. He mounted his horse and saluted. "Until next time, Sullivan." As the cavalry rode away with their prisoners, the tension drained from the ranch yard. Hank let out a whoop of relief, and the other hands broke into grins and back-slapping. Martha emerged from the house, shotgun still in hand, and hurried to embrace Lily. "You foolish, brave girl," she scolded, hugging her tightly. "Don't you ever scare me like that again." Lily returned the hug, the reality of what had just happened, and what had nearly happened, washing over her. When Martha released her, she turned to find Jake watching her. His expression a mixture of relief, admiration, and something deeper that made her pulse quicken. "That was the bravest and most foolish thing I've ever seen," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "You could have been killed." "I couldn't let you all risk your lives for me," Lily replied simply. Jake took a step closer, his eyes never leaving hers. "I meant what I said to Blackwood. I would have died before letting him take you." The raw honesty in his voice touched something deep in Lily's heart. "I know," she whispered. "That's why I couldn't let you." Jake closed the distance between them, taking her hands in his. "When I saw you walk out there, my heart stopped," he said. "I realized in that moment that losing you would be like losing the sun, leaving my world in darkness." Lily's breath caught at his words. "Jake, I know it's fast," he continued, his thumbs tracing circles on her palms. "Too fast, maybe, but I've learned that life is short and uncertain. When you find something precious, you hold on to it with both hands." He paused, his blue eyes searching hers. "You're precious to me, Lily Baker. More precious than I thought possible after knowing you such a short time." Lily felt tears welling in her eyes, but they were tears of joy, not sorrow. "I feel the same," she admitted, "from that first day in town when you told me I wasn't leaving with anyone but you. Something inside me knew you were right, that I belonged with you." Jake's smile was like the sunrise, brilliant and warm. With gentle reverence, he kept her face in his hands and kissed her, a tender promise of all that might be between them. Lily's arms went around his neck, holding him close as she returned the kiss, her heart overflowing with happiness. When they finally parted, breathless and smiling, they became aware of their audience. The ranch hands were grinning broadly, and Martha was wiping tears from her eyes. Hank gave a low whistle of approval. "About time," he drawled, causing everyone to laugh. Jake kept one arm around Lily's waist as they faced their friends. "I believe this calls for a celebration," he announced. "The danger's past, and we have much to be thankful for." The day passed in a blur of joy and relief. A feast was prepared, and the entire ranch gathered to celebrate not only their victory over Blackwood, but also the new beginning for Jake and Lily. As twilight fell, Jake found Lily on the porch watching the first stars appear in the darkening sky. "Happy?" he asked, joining her at the railing. "Very," she replied, leaning into his side as his arm went around her shoulders, though it still seems like a dream. A week ago, I was a mail-order bride arriving to marry a stranger. Now, Jake prompted, turning to face her. Lily smiled up at him. Now I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. Jake's expression grew serious. Lily, I know this is sudden, and I wouldn't blame you if you thought it too soon, but after today I can't imagine my life without you in it. He took her hands in his. I'm not asking for an answer now. I want to court you properly. Give you time to be sure. But I want you to know that one day I hope to ask you to be my wife. Not because of some arrangement made through letters, but because we choose each other freely and with our whole hearts. Lily felt tears of happiness spring to her eyes. I don't need time. Jake Sullivan. My heart has already chosen you. Jake's smile was radiant in the soft evening light. Is that a yes to my not yet asked question? Lily laughed, joy bubbling up inside her. It's a yes to everything, to this life, to this ranch, to you. I came west seeking a husband and a home. I found both, just not in the way I expected. Jake drew her into his arms, his kiss a seal on their promise to each other. As they stood together on the porch of what would become their home, Lily Baker, who had been packed for a man she'd never met, knew with absolute certainty that she had found exactly where she belonged. Epilogue. 2 years later, Lily Sullivan stood on the porch of the main ranch house, one hand resting on her swollen belly as she watched her husband ride in from the north pasture. Even after 2 years of marriage, the sight of Jake on horseback still took her breath away, his straight-backed silhouette. The easy way he moved with his mount, the quiet confidence that radiated from him. As he approached, Jake spotted her waiting and urged his horse into a trot. His face lit up with the smile he reserved only for her, the one that still made her heart skip a beat. Should you be standing out here in this heat? He called as he dismounted, handing the res to Lewis before taking the porch steps 2 at a time. I'm perfectly fine, Lily assured him, accepting his kiss with a smile. Your son is restless today, that's all. I thought some fresh air might calm him. Jake placed his hand beside hers on her rounded stomach, wonder crossing his face as he felt the baby kick. Still certain it's a boy, are you, mother's intuition? Lily said confidently. Just as I was right about the cattle drive finishing early, Jake laughed, leading her back into the coolness of the house. That you were. The men are bringing the herd in now. Best drive we've had in years. The ranch had prospered under their joint stewardship. Jake's knowledge of cattle and land, combined with Lily's sharp mind for business, had expanded Sullivan Ranch from a modest operation, one of the most successful in the territory. They had added 2,000 acres to their holdings, including the land that had once belonged to Richard Blackwood. Martin Blackwood had been sentenced to 15 years in the territorial prison for his crimes, effectively ending his criminal empire. Sheriff Collins had recovered from his injuries and become a regular visitor to the ranch, often bringing news from town and staying for Martha's Sunday dinners. Lily and Jake had married 3 months after the confrontation with Blackwood in a simple ceremony performed by the traveling preacher. Martha had sworn Lily a beautiful wedding dress, and the entire ranch had celebrated for 2 days afterward. Their honeymoon had been a week-long trip to Denver, where they had attended the theater and dined in fine restaurants, experiences Lily had missed from her city life. Upon their return, they had moved into the main house, transforming it from a bachelor's residence to a true home. Lily's garden at the homestead had been expanded to provide vegetables for the entire ranch, and her chickens had multiplied into a sizable flock that produced eggs for both consumption and sale in town. Now, with their first child due in less than a month, they were preparing for the next chapter in their lives. Jake had hired 2 more ranch hands to help with the increased workload, and Martha had moved into the main house temporarily to assist Lily in the final weeks of her pregnancy. Dinner's almost ready, Lily said as they entered the kitchen where Martha was removing a roast from the oven. Just in time. Smells wonderful, Jake said, washing his hands at the sink. The men will be hungry when they get in. They settled into the comfortable routine of ranch life, the shared meals, the stories of the day's work, the planning for tomorrow. After dinner, when the hands had retired to the bunkhouse and Martha to her room, Jake and Lily sat on the porch swing watching the stars emerge in the twilight sky. "I got a letter from Captain Monroe today," Jake said, his arm around Lily's shoulders. "He's been promoted to major. Says he'll visit next spring once the weather improves." "That's wonderful news," Lily replied, leaning into his warmth. "I'd like our son to meet the man who helped save his parents." Jake pressed a kiss to her temple. "Have I told you today how much I love you?" Lily smiled, contentment washing over her. "Yes, but I never tire of hearing it. I love you, Lily Sullivan." Jake said, his voice deep with emotion. "More today than yesterday, less than tomorrow." "And I love you," Lily replied, turning to meet his gaze. "My cowboy who wouldn't let me leave with anyone but him." Jake's laugh was soft in the gathering darkness. "Best decision I ever made, stopping you that day. For both of us." Lily agreed, nestling closer to him as the first stars appeared overhead. As they sat together watching nightfall over the land they both loved, Lily reflected on the strange and wonderful journey that had brought her to this moment. She had come west with a suitcase packed for a man she'd never met, seeking security and perhaps contentment. Instead, she had found passion, purpose, and a love deeper than she had ever imagined possible. The baby kicked again, and Jake's hand covered hers, a silent acknowledgement of the miracle they had created together. In the distance, a coyote called its lonely voice, echoing across the valley. But there was no loneliness here on the porch of Sullivan Ranch, only the quiet joy of two people who had found in each other exactly what they needed. "Look," Jake said softly, pointing to a shooting star that blazed briefly across the heavens. "Make a wish." Lily smiled and closed her eyes, but no wish came to mind. She had everything her heart desired right here in this moment. The man she loved, the child they had created, the land they had nurtured together. Her journey had been unexpected, filled with danger and uncertainty, but it had led her home. And as the star faded from the sky, Lily Baker Sullivan knew with absolute certainty that the greatest adventure of her life was just beginning.